These definitions are yardsticks by which we can measure the hypocrisy of our own leaders.
I'd like to bring us back to the sort of generality of international law and whether there are any alternative frameworks that actually might prove more effective at making states behave better when they're at war. Malcolm?
Well, this is a historical process. You know, before the Second World War, there was no such constraints at all, even attempted. So we had the terrible thing after the
UN Charter.
I'm talking about the League of Nations period.
Oh, sorry.
And I'm saying that, for example, during the war, when Germany bombed Coventry, we bombed Dresden. And we bombed indiscriminately. Yeah. And we knew that we were killing as many Germans as we could, men, women, and children. And Bomber Harris defended that to the last days of his life, and many people agreed with him. So that was in the context of the middle of, I'm not defending it, but that was in the middle of a world war. It was because of these circumstances that people, particularly in Britain and America, in the Western countries, decided the time had come, not just to create a United Nations, but to create an international declaration of human rights. And whether it was in Geneva or in the UN, and that was a huge step forward, which the world had never had before. So we shouldn't get too pessimistic or too upset that it's not working perfectly. You know, when you have 180 countries in the world and there are real differences between them, it is only in the last couple of generations we've even tried to have an international legal system. And it's already achieved good progress in some areas and deep disappointments elsewhere.
Yeah. So don't let perfection be the enemy of the good, is what you're saying.
I think the history goes back longer than that, and a lot, to do with the settlement of the First World War. That was an attempt by countries, not very successful, but something that resembled international law. All right, most of the apparatus we're talking about came in after the Second World War, but it goes back. It's been a long time since countries have said there should be no international law. So in answer to your question, I think no. There are lots and lots of international laws, but if you're to remove yourself from the principle completely, you have a free-for-all. You have countries, the stronger ones saying we're going to do what we want, and the weaker ones saying we wish there was some agreement. Can we do anything, getting together in regional groups or anything to protect ourselves? It is the weaker ones who say, most clearly, we need the rule of law. But you take it away, you have a free-for-all.
But the use of international statutes and conventions does help people campaigning in lots of places. I mean, I've been many times to the UN Human Rights Commission, now Council, taken up individual cases there and able to quote back at the governments concerned the issue of their breaches and so on. It doesn't always solve everything, but it does mean that those demanding the freedom of people that have been wrongly imprisoned and so on have something they can quote back in their campaigning in that society. So it does help, and it does help also to expose those governments that don't do anything to try and mend their ways on irrational imprisonment, arrest, murder, torture, and so on. It doesn't solve it all, but it's a step forward that we at least have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that we do have a UN process that you can use to try and support people going through the deepest and darkest times of their lives.
And after all, some war criminals have been arrested and jailed.
Yeah, but at least if you have a democratic structure, Israel is a democracy, its courts are independent of the government, and the courts have stopped Netanyahu on not enough occasions, but very often he has been overruled by the courts and he's been forced to accept that. So the crucial requirement is not just an international system. It is the saddest fact of the world we live in is that about half the world does not respect the rule of law domestically, never mind internationally.
All right, but even in the places it doesn't, like Russia, international law does give a basis for doing something to punish what has been done.
It's good that we can converge on the importance of international law, even if it is weak and unenforceable, because it is our legacy. As Malcolm said before, after 1945, after the horrors of the Holocaust, of the whole caboodle, the peoples of the world united and they brought themselves to the point where they agreed on international rules. They defined the difference between war and a war crime, the difference between war crime and genocide. These definitions are yardsticks by which we can measure the hypocrisy of our own leaders and other leaders. And this is essential for agitating in order to give a chance to this transformation of the international law which we have now, which is what? It is a series of principles that the bigots and the warmongers and the perpetrators disobey, and the righteous cannot enforce. To convert that into a kind of United Nations that would have the capacity to act. This is a long process. Whether we will succeed or not is neither here nor there. But we have no right to wipe out this legacy because it is not being enforced.
Good, thank you.